The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Mr. Joe Goldberg is in from planting his snapdragons.
I've been planting snapdragons and moss roses and other things my wife tells me to plant.
You're such a sensitive man.
I am. Well, this is her last day ever of teaching, so I thought I'd get supportive and go out there and plant the gardens.
Yeah.
Which I would do anyway, but she's got a lot going on. This is the end of 23, 25 years of teaching little minds.
Yeah. Destroying
teaching. She's a reading elementary school reading teacher, interventionist.
Yeah.
She was third generation teacher. My daughter's a teacher. She's fourth generation, obviously. See how it goes from there.
Yeah. No, as long as she keeps you in the house, we're okay.
Well, she's retiring, and I've been retired, so now I'm losing my retirement because she's going to be here during my retirement.
So you can't more of that goofing around and watching TV all day.
And worse.
Yeah, worse.
But anyway, let's talk to our guest.
Yeah. We've got someone important here. So we've got an author, and let's just bring him in. So Matt Scott, thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, Matt, what made you decide that you wanted to write books? I mean, it started later. From my understanding, you were in your 40s or something.
Yeah, I definitely got a late start on it. The genesis of it really was that I hated reading early on, just because they made us read so much crap in high school. Watership Down and Good Earth. I just couldn't stand it. So I really didn't get into reading until the Da Vinci Code came out. The phenomenon that thing was. So I got into it from there, and I was on the elevator at work one day, and I ran into a guy that started talking about Vince Flynn. And I never saw that guy again, so I think that's a moment of divine intervention for me. Went out and read all of Vince's books, and started reading, Brad Thor and Joel Rosenberg and some other guys. So all this stuff just kind of, started absorbing. And it really started, the writing started for me. I started having some ideas about doing a kidnapped CIA agent novel set in Iran. And then I met David Baldacci at a book signing in Williamsburg, Virginia. I drove through a snowstorm to see him. And I got up to my turn at the table, and I said, I was 39 at the time. I said, is 40 too old to write your first book? And I kid you not, this guy stopped mid-signature, looked up at me and said, hell no, the industry could use some good young writers. Now, I didn't know if I should be happier that this guy thought that 40 was still young, or that this mythic man of the industry was telling me to go forth with my destiny. But I took that advice and ran with it, and I started outlining as soon as I got home.
I'll actually call David later and talk to him about that.
We should have mentioned him last time he was on. See, you remember Matt?
I got to give him some grief.
I'm going to see him, actually. He's going to be here in Charlotte on Sunday, so I'm going to try to bring back Taking Down Memory Lane when I see him.
You have to. That'd be great.
Yeah. You can, get him. You can sign a book for him.
I'm actually going to try, but I doubt his people will let me. They'll probably kick me out, but I'm going to try and get my time at the table with him nonetheless.
No, he's pretty friendly. It's a friendly group. They won't turn you away.
Yeah, no, they were good. They were good last time, and I'm hoping they'll be good this time. But it's kind of like it's coming full circle a little bit for me. So, but I do. It is important for me to get up there and thank him, because I don't think without that push from him, I don't think I would have, really propelled myself to do it. Because self-doubt is it's a really something that plagues us all, right? And with him being as big a name as he is it's kind of like, well, what are you waiting for?
Well, I got to ask the question. I know you've been asked it. I saw it actually, watched on your video. I worked for the agency. I was there during the whole Iran thing. Why Iran? It is just a country that no one thinks about, unless you want to think about a radical terrorist. That's the picture people have of Iran. So, but why for you, Iran?
It was actually for that reason. Like I said, I was kind of inspired by the Da Vinci Code, the way Dan Brown took the Robert Langdon character, took the readers on a tour of Europe, by way of his writing. And Iran has always been interesting to me simply because of, what happened with the revolution and the embassy situation there in '79. And I just kind of started thinking that, not a lot of people like myself know what Iran looks like on the inside, how it operates. Everybody knows that there's the Islamic extremists that, would, blow us all up if they had the chance. But I also kind of refuse to believe that everyone over there was like that. So it took me a lot of research to kind of see what goes on there, what are some of the major sites, and I wanted to take people on a tour, at least with book one, inside Iran, and let people know, that there's some good people there too. And that was kind of my goal, and then it just kind of transitioned into the other books, and then the third one obviously ended up being about regime change. But short answer is, I want to go there, and the research was fun enough that I just decided, what the hell, and go for it. Because the thing about it is, as stringent as the Iranian government is with the internet and Facebook and Twitter, they're actually pretty lenient with regards to Instagram and YouTube. And I was fortunate enough to have, a lot of, everybody's got a dash cam these days. So anything that I really needed to know about, the inside of a palace or anything like that, I was able to find by way of YouTube. So it was a big help.
Well, it's interesting, but I want to see what leads you to these kind of ideas, and what gives you the confidence to feel like you can write about them. Is there some sort of thing, or some sort of, what gives you that confidence?
I think the confidence comes from the fact that I was working such a horrible job in the corporate America, and when I sit down in front of a keyboard, the only person I'm reporting to is me. I don't have to, check with anybody about ideas or anything like that. So it's, I kind of live and die by my own sword. Now, I don't have, obviously, the experience that Joe has with the agency. So, I have to rely on my research and a lot of the nonfiction novels that I read. But I've always had I think I've always had a very creative gene inside me. It was always about harnessing it and, turning it into something more tangible than just a note in a greeting card or something like that. So I just kind of accepted the fact that I was given a creative gift, and it was up to me to try and make the best of it. And I put that together with some of the things that I would always wanted to write about, a kidnapped CIA agent, inside Iran, I've always been, the Vince Flynn novels obviously inspired me. So it was a challenge to me, and it was one that I chose to accept within myself. So, that's kind of where my confidence comes from, and everything else, I kind of let it fall by the wayside and see what happens. But I just pick up my story and say, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And I just let it go from there and let the fingers do the talking on the keyboard.
Well, there you go. No, but is there some sort of a meaning or some sort of purpose under the underlying, subtext, something that is different, that's important to you, that you're trying to get across in the story? It's not the entertainment part or the action. It's just something that you want people to get. Is there something else? Well, with regards to Iran, I would say that I did want to try and convey that there are good people in Iran. And I do think regime change will happen eventually in Iran. I think the economic sanctions that we put on them are working. I think it's a little more slowly than I think I would personally like. But I think it's going to happen, and to see the possibilities of what Iran could really be if it was to turn into the type of country like Jordan or to some extent Egypt, I suppose. But I think Iran, when you look at it, even though the Shah didn't treat his people fairly, it was better then than it's been under the Ayatollahs, and Iran was a great place to visit, in the 50s and things like that. So it is a great country, and I think that the possibilities there are really limitless if we can inspire regime change somehow. With regards to purpose for me personally,
I heard a quote one time, and it goes something like this: that was, hell is to meet the person you could have been at death and realize you're not even a shadow of that person. And heaven is meeting the person you should have been and seeing yourself staring back at you. So it was all about me trying to make the best of my opportunity. And if I knew I couldn't fail, what would I do? And I wanted to write. And it was about me trying to get these stories out to people. And I hope that whether it be my personal story or the stories that I put on paper, I hope that people somehow take a liking to them.
Well, then how did you approach Iranian Middle Eastern culture in your writing? Iran being a Shia country versus the Sunnis. How did you feel about writing in that arena, culture-wise?
Culture-wise, it was I felt it was. I had to write very carefully. I think I tried not to write them in too much of a westernized fashion. So I had to balance it between what they are and what I think that they could be. Fortunately, some of the documentaries that I saw about the Iranians, the everyday Iranian citizens, showed me, opened up a door to me to show, what they want and what they could be. But we can't forget, and I had to make sure that I didn't forget that, the Shia culture can be violent and overwhelming, and that reality is there. And was important to me to convey, whether it was in book 1, 2, or 3, to show, what can happen by way of the Revolutionary Guard or, the Basij or, whatever, form of government they have over there, and how the hammer can really come down on anyone. So it was a balancing act, but my intent was to try and show what it is, what it can be, and what's in between. And what I saw was that there's an Iran that exists out there in public, and then there's an Iran that exists behind closed doors.
How do you develop your characters in a story like this? Like, where do they come from for you?
Daydreaming, honestly.
What did you say if I was busy daydreaming?
I think it all starts with motivation for me. The Ben Thrasher character, my brother's name was Ben, so that kind of came from there. And Thrasher just kind of one of the names that just kind of seemed kind of badass and just kind of came to me. But as far as character development is concerned, that's one of the forms of the process that I still do freehand on paper. And I have all of their motivations written out and kind of bubbled out, with lines written, drawn out, and I try and find a way to make them weave in and out between each other. So because I don't have Joe's experience in the field and in the agency, so for me, strength of character is paramount, because I have to base the operational sense on what I've read, but the character sense, I think, can come from within. So I have to make these characters A, likable, but B, have a very unique personality to make sure that the ones that they're supposed to hate, they hate with a vengeance, and the ones that they're supposed to like, they love once they come in there and kick it to the villains. It's my own spider web, so to speak, but it's all about motivation for me. What are the characters' motivations towards the plot that I want to put down?
Well, there's the question. You said you wanted to write a book about a CIA agent being kidnapped in Iran. That's a plot point. So did the characters weave around your plot, and they developed as you developed your plot, or did you have characters and say, I want to make this character more likable. Let me write plot to make that happen in the frame of the book? Is it plot, character, plot? How did you think about it?
Plot definitely came first. Plot always comes first to me, because without the plot, I feel like you can't guide the characters in the right direction. You can write them, but they have to be going in the direction you want to send the readers. So I always develop the plot first. I say, this is what I'm going to do, and then I take the characters and kind of weave it in and around them, in the plot, excuse me. So yeah, so plot always comes first for me.
What's your actual relationship with your characters then? Your main characters. And I ask that because a lot of writers will describe them as family, friends, all sorts of stuff, kids, children, what's your relationship?
I always kind of see him staring at me in the corner here, saying, "You should be writing."
Those are my characters. Kind
of. But I think when you talk about the first book, your first book was always your baby, so you never really want to kill any of the characters off. By the time you get to the second and third one, you learn that no one is safe, simply because I think I have to maintain that discipline that I could kill anyone off at any given moment. But for the time being, it's just important for me that I write them in a way that they continue to develop, so that I will continue liking them. Because if it ever gets to the point where I don't like them or I can't take them anywhere, I will not hesitate to throw them through the wood chipper.
So is your family aware of such a temper?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Where do you think I got the wood chipper idea from? My dad.
Well, there you go. How is your dialogue, and how do you write dialogue? Are you hearing the dialogue, seeing it? Do you see it like a movie, or do you just what's your experience?
Dialogue for me, I feel kind of comes naturally, but the best way I can describe it is that I kind of immerse myself into the characters' heads, whoever it is that's in the scene, and I just kind of recall how it is that I've set the scene up, and I just say, this is how this character would be thinking at this moment. This is how he would respond to Major General Lajani if he said something like that. Because dialogue obviously just keeps the scene moving, but it's important to me that within dialogue you have to convey personality, but it's also important that you keep the scene moving in the right direction. So I would say, the best way I can describe it is I put it in myself in their seat, but I do kind of see it on the screen a little bit, and the characters are talking as I'm typing.
Are you dressed up like them too?
white powder wig and tights, and pointy shoes, and bells on the
No, I usually do my writing in my boxers. So.
Oh, there we go.
Ding, hello. Check these later. All right, so let's get back to the character question. You have many characters across your spectrum of sort of characteristics. You have several characters. You have the agency character, and they kind of fit into personality traits. And they're sort of they're kind of on the good person side, and you have to have your bad people too. So how do they interact, and how did you decide to put those people into those personality locations? What were you trying to get across?
I think what I was trying to get across is, with in terms of the main villains, and even the minor villains, what I was trying to get across was, let's make them as unlikable as humanly possible, but I also had to make sure that I conveyed that there was a human element to them in terms of, this is why they're doing what they're doing, and for whatever reason they think they're right. So once I have that, it makes it easier to let them cross, because no matter what the situation is, the villain is going to feel like he's right no matter what, and it's the good guy's job to stop them. So I think as long as I convey that properly, then the interaction kind of takes care of itself. Does that answer your question? Or
yeah, well, I agree. And and the answer many writers have said that we may not like the bad guys, but as you exactly just said, the bad guys think they're the good guys. That they're on the right side. They're doing right.
Exactly.
And that is not the easiest thing to convey when you're writing characters across a storyline.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's very tough. But it all goes back to motivation. Why are they doing what they're doing? I mean, they're not just going to blow up the world because they want to blow up the world. Are there characters like that? Sure. I mean, you got the Joker from Batman and all that stuff. But in the world of anti-terrorism and geopolitics, in the genre that I'm writing, there's always going to be either a personal or a national gain for the villain, and without me conveying that, then they're just a bully, and that's the kind of thing that I think turns readers off, because everybody knows a bully, but nobody ever really knows a bully's motivation. So when you have that in there, it makes it easier to turn the page and see what happens to them.
Do you think about the violence you write on the page and how it's going to be read by someone, or did you just kind of write it as it is?
Yeah, no, I think I have it. I have to keep it on a leash just a little bit. We were talking, if I was writing about cannibalism or something like that, I think it would be a lot more unrestrained. But the idea is, for me, is when I'm writing, especially when I'm writing a torture scene, that I have to make the audience cringe enough and feel the pain that the protagonist is going through, enough that they can't stop reading it, but they don't. It hurts them to read it, but I don't want to take it to another level where somebody cuts open somebody's stomach and uses their intestines for a jump rope or anything like that. I mean, that's taking it a little too far. So the idea for me is make it bad enough that they'll remember it, but not so bad that they want to skip the chapter.
Well, yeah, you start eating the intestines, cook them.
Yeah, I don't think I could write Hannibal Lecter. I don't. That's something that I don't think I could do. I mean, the idea, I got to admit though, the idea of writing a horror novel that scares the Jesus out of somebody that's reading it is very, very appealing to me. But I'm not sure that I have that in me.
Well, is that where you would go? Well, let me hit that, because I kind of always ask authors a question: is there another genre in you? Is there a great American novel, The Kill Mockingbird, or Signs of the Lambs stirring around in you?
I would love to write a horror novel. I really would. Do I have it in me? I like to think so, just because if I say no, then it's kind of tricking my brain into saying you're not good enough again. And with 3 books under my belt right now, I think I have confidence enough in myself that I can do it. But I would love to write a horror novel. My problem is that the world of espionage and thrillers are just always seem just so much fun, and the action scenes I really enjoy writing. I mean, my fingers are just on fire when I'm writing an action scene, and a horror novel, the pace has to be a little bit different. It's more of a slow build, and I am far too impatient for that. So I would have to find a way to write a more fast-paced horror novel. So would that work or not? I don't know, but I would definitely give it a try.
I talked to J.T. Patton. He went from action to horror books now.
Yeah.
He's doing a good job.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
there's a second one, I think, coming out too now. I think
coming out
so.
soon. Yep.
Yeah,
They're really good.
yeah. It's just one step different, I think. But now in this is a series. This is book 3 of a series. So did you have this plotted out in your mind? Do you outline kind of the beginning, middle, and end of a series, or do you just write a book and then start from there? Like, how does that go for you?
It almost happened by accident for me, because when I wrote Surviving the Lion's Den, the first book in the series, my intent was, okay, let's get this one sold and see what happens. I have no experience, prior experience in the publishing industry. I didn't know any other writers or anything like that. So I finished that one, and then the thoughts just kind of started generating in my head a little bit, and they were nothing more than ideas. And my agent called me when she was trying to sell the first one. She says, "Okay, I've got a publisher and they're interested." I'm like, "Okay, great." But they don't want one, they want a series. So what are your other 2 ideas? And I on the phone with her right then and there, I had to come up with 2 more ideas that I could sell to this publisher. And I just went with the 2 ideas that I had. And, the second book, The Iranian Deception, was a connection between the Iranians and the Nazis, which I thought was going to be, fun to write in terms of really going down the creative well to challenge myself, and let's put together the two worst, modern day government regimes and see what I can come out with. And I think in the back of my mind, I always wanted to write a book about, creatively what regime change would look like in Iran. Now it was hard to do, within the confines of the one book, but I did not, outline it or anything like that. It's one of those things that I was fortunate enough that I had enough of an idea of what I wanted to do, and I was able to harness my creative juices well enough that it came out the way that it came out. But it was, I guess I'll say, a happy accident. But it all worked out.
So how many of these are you going to do?
Well, my contract with Speaking Volumes is up after 3. So I would like to do more. I think there's certainly a lot more that I would like to explore within Iran. I've actually, because I like the characters. I really like the Ben Thrasher and Tom Delang. So I really would like to continue with them. Will that be an option for me? That's kind of TBD. But I've also started, kind of outlining and doing some research on North Korea. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But once an author, always an author. So you can't really turn off the creative juices. But the way I left book 3, there's still certainly some other possibilities within Iran, because I think we've all seen, at least with regards to Iraq, just because regime change happens doesn't mean everyone openly accepts it. There's always going to be that there's little people there on the side that want to try and put things back the way they were. So I've got some other ideas for this one, but I haven't gotten very far with them.
Man, we have to have a talk, because when I started writing, my friends gave me advice: make sure you write about places that you want to vacation, so you can do research. You can go to the Bahamas or Bora Bora or wherever it is you are. And going to North Korea and Iran are not necessarily the easiest vacation tourist places. So you talked about your research being video cameras. Do you talk to professionals, experts, professors on those countries or regions to sort of get inside the mind of the people?
I've been fortunate. Professors, no, but I have been fortunate enough that with everything that's been going on in Iran over the last year or so, there's been a free Iran movement here in Charlotte, and I've been able to go to some of the protests in Uptown and make some contacts with some people that used to live in Iran, and kind of I get to pick their brain not only about geography, but about what it was like when they were over there. Where do they see it going? So that's always been a big help. The scholarly stuff that I put into the plot, I kind of deduce from the research that I've done reading the nonfiction books about Iran.
They're kind of touchy subjects too, in a way. Does that always sort of make you a little bit conscious of how you're going to write it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I am aware that it can be a little touchy, but you can't walk on eggshells around everyone. And my responsibility to myself as a writer is to challenge myself and write about the things that may not be comfortable and could potentially happen. But that being said, I'm not going to write anything in my novels that's I feel is going to really put people off in terms of making me part of being part of the literary cancel culture. I guess I'll put it that way, simply because I don't want to be banished. I've worked too hard to get this far, but I do have to be a little careful. But overall, I would say I have to challenge myself, and I have to write about what I want to write about and with the ideas that come to me. So there's a little bit of a balancing act, but a writer does what a writer has to do.
Well, let's hit on that cancel writing process. When you're writing now, 3 books down the road, you have a loyal readership. Are they standing over your shoulder, maybe looking in your mind as you're writing? Are you writing for them? Are you writing for you? Are you writing for the characters inside your book?
I tend to think of it the other way. I tend to think of it as they're watching the movie and I'm over their shoulder, listening to what they think. And I kind of, in order for any writer to me to be, in my opinion, for any writer to be successful, they always have to be one step ahead of the audience. So for me, I have to put myself in the reader's seat and make sure that if I was reading it, this is where I think they're going. But hey, guess what? It's not. That's not exactly it. So it's kind of like they're watching it, and I'm whispering to them, "Be careful! Don't like this character too much, or don't go there." And then I surprise them with something. So that's I guess that's the power trip that I get on when I'm behind a keyboard, because I'm the one that's in control of where it's going, and how can I best surprise the audience and at the same time entertain them.
So how do you think this process has changed you? Like each book that you've put out and worked through usually has some sort of change, and it sounds like you're very tied to the subject as well as the characters. So how do you think it's changed you?
Well, the best thing that ever happened to me was that I wrote a really crappy first draft when I did my first book. The first book was originally I think it was 130,000 words, and it was about 3 guys that went to Iran and got involved in this thing. So I think I think it was Brad Thor or Jack Carr say one time, always give yourself permission to write a bad first draft. And I did that with the first one. So I always kind of keep it in mind, but I've been fortunate enough, at least with books 2 and 3, that I would say 90% of what ended up in the finished product ended up being in the first draft. So I would say that the way it's changed for me is I've been able to harness my focus and maybe not overwrite too much. I still tend to be a bit of an overwriter, which I guess in the long run makes it a little bit easier in the editing sessions, because it's always easier to take out than it is put back in or add. But I have, between the first book and the third book, I had no idea what I was doing. I just did what I did because that's what's working for me. So, I now have a routine. I know, how many words I can write per day, what my limits are, and what I want to do with a draft. But I learned that when I did the first one, I was always afraid of deleting something. I was like, I did all this research. This is 30,000 words. I can't take this out. And what I really learned is that the delete key is your friend. Never, ever be afraid to hit the delete key, because if something's not working and you get stuck, it's trying to tell you it can't go there. So never, ever be afraid of the delete key. And it's really helped me maintain my focus, trying to get through the second and third books.
So I want to be a writer. What do I do? What would you suggest to someone that's wanting to take on the world of writing?
Read, always read. You will absorb so much. If you're reading, whether it's horror novels or spy thrillers or mysteries or crime novels, if that is what you're interested in, that's where you should be reading. And ultimately, I feel like, that's where you should be writing, because you're going to write on what interests you the most. And when you read the best, when you read Vince Flynn, when you read Jack Carr, when you read David Baldacci, Stephen King, and John Grisham, whatever the case may be, they're not just there to entertain.
Joe Goldberg.
Yeah, I didn't say anything about that. Yeah.
Oh,
I got
caught, man. I feel like I just got spanked on radio. Sorry about that, Joe.
No, you had a good answer going to it, so keep going.
But I mean, what these guys are really offering you is, not just entertainment, but education. I mean, you can figure out how to weave the plot, how to weave the characters, and you learn from it. And even though no one book is the same, there's always, a different way to do it. And start out doing that, and then, I would say start looking on YouTube. YouTube's a good place to start in terms of, how do you want to formulate your plot? Do you want to be a pantser? Do you want to be an outliner? Things that generally work and not. But to me, for me personally, I felt like I had the gift of writing within me, so I just needed some guidance. And the writers that I named definitely led the way for me. So I learned from them as much as I was entertained by them, and still am.
Yeah, I've learned everything I have from Joe.
I learned from your true crime.
I would love to sit down and have a steak with Joe and talk about his agency days. That would
smoked cheese.
Smoked
cheese.
You can call me anytime. Yeah, smoked cheese. It's not smoked cheese season. It's smoked cheese season.
We can do that.
Hey, anytime. Give me a call.
That. We can definitely do that. Bourbon steaks, cheese. I'm all about it.
See, he's my friend now.
Yeah.
He's invited me to this bourbon steak cheese. What have you invited me?
What do you mean, bro? I haven't.
Don't start.
Well, what would you have, Alan? What can we do for dessert for you? What dessert would we have in your honor?
No, none. Don't. No.
None?
No. I'm dessertless.
Oh,
She's already so sweet. Okay, commercial time.
Yeah, it's just getting out of there. Yeah, so listen, Matt, have you ever decided that you'd go back to one of your first books, like the first book or whatever, and look at it and reread it and feel you want to change something?
I think when you finish your book, it's no longer yours. It doesn't belong to you anymore. And I edited that damn thing so many times that I was ready to get rid of it once it was almost ready for publication. But I will say this. With regards to book one, it's always a writer's first time. So there's always going to be some mistakes or some things that I wish I would have changed. And I guess probably the one thing with regards to book one that I would change was I was really under a crunch from my editor and my publisher about limiting word count. So I wish I had added a chapter in the beginning about the wingsuit diving. I think that would have maybe helped things flow a little bit better and made what happened near the end of the book kind of come full circle. But otherwise, once I write the book, I put it down, and I thank God that I was able to get everything out and do it the way that I did it, because there's no do-overs in this one. This is you have your product, you put it out there, and then it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the readers. They can kind of pick it apart as they wish.
So have you killed off anybody you know in your books?
Like friends of mine, the characters that I named
Yeah. Someone you've known, or someone you've worked with, someone you've another writer, maybe Joe, and killed them off when they in the book used them as the basis of a character.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, the first one. I had there was a group of guys named Jacob Webb, Wynn McPherson, and Dan McAdams. I call them the Mix, and they were my friends back in the Hampton Roads area, and I did not hesitate to kill them with extreme prejudice in a bombing. But they were happy just to be a part of it. I always try and give some friends and people I know little small characters. In the Ayatollah Takedown, there's a character that is head of the museum, Isabella Gardner Museum in Boston. She used to be my boss at my other corporate job, and one of my mom's sorority sisters is an FBI agent in that novel. So I always try and give a little bit of kind of tongue in cheek and winks to people I like. But yeah, to my friends, and the one guy that in the second book, there's a guy I play golf with, Katan Patel. I kind of wrote a character kind of more or less based on him, and he always makes me putt out the short 3-foot putts instead of giving them to me. Yeah, he is not a gimme guy. So it felt liberating to kill him, and I told him so. Yeah, it felt very liberating to kill him off.
Well, we've got him on the other line right now. So
yeah. Hope it took a long time too.
He has something to say about this.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. He will not hesitate. He is he's something else. He's very strict on the golf course with me. That's for sure.
Listen. So now, are you big on interacting with readers and fans and other people? Do you have social media set up, website? Like, where do people find you?
They can find me. Send me an email by way of my website at mattscottbooks.com. On Facebook, I have my business account, Matt Scott Books, and my regular personal account, Twitter and Instagram, at Matt Scott Books. And I love interacting with my fans. I love receiving, images of people holding the book, telling me how much they love this scene, that character. And I answer every single one of them because, to me, that is the best privilege in the world as a writer, to be able to interact with the people who are kind enough to give you their time and money, but time is more valuable, I think, to read, the idea that came from my head. And I love hearing from people. So anytime anybody wants to contact me, feel free.
Well, there you go. Now, of course, we'll put that up on the website so they can find you easily, one click. And so, listen, you must have been writing some of this over COVID and all of that lockdown and all the weird stuff going on. Do you think that affected the way you wrote, or maybe the feeling of how you wrote? Do you think it was darker, or are you type the person that it didn't matter at all? You just, no problems?
I don't think it mattered to me in terms of how I wrote. The first one, I spent COVID actually, first part of COVID, 2020, trying to find my literary agent and my publisher. But the second and third books, I don't mind saying at this point, my publisher kind of put me on a tight deadline in terms of being able to, get the first draft done, get it edited, and get it fixed and get it submitted. So I really spent, those COVID years for books 2 and 3 under a little bit of pressure. So I had to make sure that I maintained my routine, which is, I would work my 8 to 5. I'll come downstairs, talk to my wife, and have dinner. And then when she falls asleep on the couch at 8:30, 9 o'clock, I come back upstairs and start writing. And I'll usually write about 1,500 words a day, which is usually about a chapter for me. So it was, I guess the most important thing, was maintaining my routine. Whereas the first book, I could write 3 or 4 chapters, take a day or 2 off and, come back to it, really without a whole lot of problem. But with the deadline that put me on, I had to make sure that I maintained my routine. Otherwise, I wasn't going to finish on time. And that was, I tend to be a little bit of a stickler for being on time. So I wanted to make sure I got that done. But the COVID years, in terms of writing, it really didn't change me or how I wrote. The routines kind of saved me in those days.
So you're the type that can just turn it on, like you can just.
In terms of getting the chapter done, because usually what I'll do is to warm up for the day, I'll reread the chapter that I wrote the day before, do some editing, and then I'll write the next chapter. Now, if the next chapter is 500 words, I might write 2 chapters. But that's a good way for me to kind of get warmed up and make sure that I pick up exactly where I left off. But as long as my hard and fast rule is I never stop in the middle of a chapter. That's the one thing I can't do. I'm too ADD to be able to do that. That would bother the living hell out of me. So as long as I get the chapter done, I can pretty much pick it up and put it down. But my brain also has a good way of telling me, okay, you're spent for the day. Go drink.
Go drink first and then go write. Oh yeah.
I've done that a few times too.
It loosens you up.
Yeah, it does.
But the spell check better be working.
Just have AI do it. Just type it in and have Chat GPT write it for you. You just
I found that actually, drinking during research is really where the big benefit lies, because that's where you get all the ideas, all the sparks start flying. So I was more of a drinker during research than I actually was pounding away at the keyboard.
There you go. Now, new readers, take note. Get drunk. Do your research.
Get drunk before you read it.
Yeah, and then go back and do it again. And no problem. Yeah, now we know.
Absolutely. It worked for me. What can I say?
So what's next? So what are you doing? You've got the 3rd book out now, the Ayatollah Takedown. And so what is going to happen now?
Well, the first thing that's going to be up for me is that I'm coming out to your neck of the woods, at least close to it. I'll be at BoucherCon. Yeah, I plan on. We'll get that steak and burger. We'll make sure we do all that. And so looking forward to that. It'll be my first conference. I've never been to Thriller Fest or anything like that. So I'm looking forward to that, making some contacts, meeting some readers. And then as far as the craft is concerned, like I said, I'm doing my research on North Korea, and I've got some other ideas flowing right now. I don't have anything. I've kind of started on the outline a little bit with the North Korea novel, but nothing concrete yet. I'm still trying to sort some things out, but I spent a lot of time trying to get these last two out, so they've taken up a lot of my time. But like I said, once a writer, always a writer. So I can't stop now. This is not vacation time. I gotta keep pressing forward.
Yeah, get to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Taking it too slow. Well, we appreciate you being here. Of course, our guest is Matt Scott. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it, and always a fan.
Thanks, Matt.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Yeah. Good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.